boys and girls. It's Miss Castor. How are you? I've missed you. Well, I was thinking tomorrow it's supposed to be a rainy day, and some of you might be going on an egg hunt because it's the special time of year when people go on egg hunts. So I thought a good book to read you tonight would be The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrice Potter. This is one of my favorite books, and the illustrations in it are so pretty. So let's read it together. This one is a Dolly Parton Imagination Library book. So if you haven't signed up to get your books, you should sign up for the Imagination Library. The Tale of Peter Rabbit by Beatrice Potter. Once upon a time, there were 4 little rabbits, and their names were Flopsy, Mopsy, Cottontail, and Peter. They lived with their mother in a sandbank underneath the root of a very big fir tree. "Now, my dear," said Miss Rabbit, "one morning you may go into the field or down the lane, but don't go into Mr. McGregor's garden. Your father had an accident there, and he was put in a pie by Mr. McGregor." "Now run along and don't get into any mischief. I am going out." Then old Mrs. Rabbit took a basket and her umbrella and went through the wood to the baker's. She bought a loaf of brown bread and 5 currant buns. Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail, who were good little bunnies, went down the lane to gather blackberries. I wonder where Peter is. Where do you think he is? But Peter, who was very naughty, ran straight away to Mr. McGregor's garden and squeezed under the gate. Do you think naughty means he's not listening to his mommy? He was being naughty. First, he ate some lettuce and some French beans, and then he ate some radishes. No. And then, feeling rather sick, he went to look for some parsley. But round the end of a cucumber frame, whom should he meet but Mr. McGregor? Mr. McGregor was on his hands and knees planting out young cabbages. But he jumped up and ran after Peter, waving a rag and yelling, "Stop, thief!" Oh no, I hope Peter could get away. Peter was dreadfully frightened. He rushed all over the garden, for he had forgotten the way back to the gate. He lost one of his shoes among the cabbages and the other shoe amongst the potatoes. After losing them, he ran on 4 legs and went faster, so that I think he might have got away altogether if he had not unfortunately run into a gooseberry net and got caught by the large buttons on his jacket. It was a blue jacket with blue buttons, and it was quite new. Oh dear. He's caught. What's he gonna do? Peter gave himself up for lost, and he shed big tears. But his sobs were overheard by some friendly sparrows. A sparrow is a kind of bird. And they flew to him in great excitement and implored him to exert himself. Mr. McGregor came up with a sieve. This is it's kind of like a basket. He came up with a sieve which he intended to pop onto Peter. But Peter wiggled out just in time, leaving his jacket behind him. Oh no, he's lost his shoes and his jacket. What's his mommy going to say? And he rushed into the tool shed and jumped into a can. It would have been a beautiful thing to hide in if it had not had so much water in it. Mr. McGregor was quite sure that Peter was somewhere in the tool shed, perhaps hidden underneath a flower pot. He began to turn them over carefully, looking under each pot. Presently, Peter sneezed, achoo! And Mr. McGregor was after him in no time. Oh no. And he tried to put his foot on Peter, who jumped out of a window, upsetting 3 plants, and the window was too small for Mr. McGregor, and he was tired of running after Peter. He went back to his work. Peter sat down to rest. He was out of breath and trembling with fright, and he had not the least idea which way to go. Also, he was very damp from sitting in that can. After a time, he began to wander about, going hippity hippity, not very fast, but looking all around. Do you think he'll get away? Do you hear my doggy barking? He found a door in a wall, but it was locked, and there was no room for a fat little rabbit to squeeze underneath. An old mouse was running in and out over the stone doorstep, carrying peas and beans to her family in the wood. Peter asked her the way to the gate, but she had such a large pea in her mouth that she could not answer. She only shook her head at him. Peter began to cry. Oh no, he's sad. Then he tried to find his way straight across the garden, but he became more and more puzzled. Presently, he came to a pond. Mr. McGregor filled his He came to a pond where Mr. McGregor filled his watering can. A white cat was staring at some goldfish. She sat very, very still, but now and then the tip of her tail twitched as if it were alive. Peter thought it best to go away without speaking to her. He had heard about cats from his cousin, little Benjamin Bunny. He went back towards the tool shed, but suddenly, quite close to him, he heard the noise of the hoe. Scritch, scritch, scratch, scritch, scratch, scritch. Peter scuttered underneath the bushes, but presently nothing happened, and he came out and climbed onto a wheelbarrow and peeked over. The first thing he saw was Mr. McGregor hoeing onions. His back was turned towards Peter, and beyond him was the gate. Peter got down very quietly off of the wheelbarrow and started running as fast as he could run along the straight walk path behind some black currant bushes. Mr. McGregor caught sight of him at the corner, but Peter did not care. He slipped underneath the gate and was safe at last in the wood outside the garden. Oh, he made it. That was a close call. Mr. McGregor hung up the little jacket and the shoes for a scarecrow to frighten away the blackbirds. Peter never stopped running or looked behind him till he got home to the big fir tree. He was so tired that he flopped down the nice soft sand on the floor of the rabbit hole and shut his eyes. His mother was busy cooking. She wondered what he had done with his clothes. It was the second little jacket and pair of shoes that Peter had lost in a fortnight. A fortnight's like a week. I am sorry to say that Peter was not very well during that evening. His mother put him to bed and made some chamomile tea and gave a dose of it to Peter. 1 tablespoonful to be taken at bedtime. But Flopsy, Mopsy, and Cottontail had bread and milk and blackberries for supper. The end. What did you think about that story? Was Peter listening to his mom? He wouldn't have gotten in all that trouble if he had listened, right? Always do what your mom says. And I hope that you have a great time tomorrow, and maybe you get to hunt for some eggs inside your house. See you soon. Bye.